there's like a boom. Oh! Hey, it's Rory with searchincha.com, and we are in some trying times now. Tomorrow, at least tomorrow from the day that we're shooting this video, we're gonna have this movement control order go into action, and we're not supposed to go anywhere, supposed to stay at home. It's rough. But before that happens, I do have something cool to show you, because yesterday a new smartphone just came into the office, and it is this one. This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip. So let's take a look at it. So I think by now, I'm sure most of us are familiar with Samsung's first folding smartphone, the famous Samsung Galaxy Fold. And this was their first ever attempt at a folding smartphone, and as a first-gen product, it definitely had a lot of first-gen problems. But after some trial and error, I mean, they finally got the phone out with a few sort of fixes and tweaks, and it's been okay so far. Like, Amin uses this particular phone as his daily driver, and he still really loves it and harps on and on about it. I, on the other hand, was always a little bit on the fence about this particular folding smartphone because of the whole, the small front display, and then the fact that when it folds, it's like got this thigh gap between the thing, and then when you fold it in half, it's sort of like two really big, thick phones. And it's still really tall, so it takes up a lot of space in your pocket. And it was like a whole thing. I always preferred the Mate Access design, but that again has its own problems, where it's like the screen that's usually on the inside or protected on the Galaxy Fold is now on the outside, because then that becomes more vulnerable to sort of scratches and stuff. And then, there was a new smartphone folding type that came out. Everybody expected that, okay, the version 2 of this would be, maybe they would make the seam a little bit, the gap a little bit smaller, maybe make the smartphone a little bit slimmer. But no, Samsung said for the second folding smartphone, they were gonna go like in a completely different direction. So obviously it has a different name. This is called the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, because it's sort of designed to emulate like the clamshell smartphones of ye old times, where you would flip the phone open, do whatever it is that you need to do, and then when you're done, have that satisfying, that is very satisfying, close to sort of cap everything off and be done with it. And it's cool. I think it's an interesting take to go this direction with the second phone. Obviously, it's not called the Fold 2. We could still have a Fold 2, who knows? It's a completely different form factor. But let's not talk about that. We're here to talk about this smartphone. And to start, we're gonna get some of the boring specs out of the way. So this smartphone is, pretty much a proper flagship device, okay? Inside, you've got a Snapdragon 855 Plus processor, which is one of the most powerful processors that Qualcomm makes. It's not the 865, but it's still like a late 2019 really capable, powerful processor, so it should still be fine. That chip is then mated to 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage, which, if you have been keeping track, is actually more storage than any of their S20 line of smartphones here in Malaysia. Besides that, you've also got the screen. So this being a folding smartphone, you don't get your usual sort of dynamic 2x OLED display. Instead, you have their new 6.7-inch Infinity Flex display, so it's flexible, hence the name Flex, and it is an AMOLED panel that pushes a full HD plus resolution, so it's pretty crisp, and it also has like a 21:9 aspect ratio. So in a sense, it's sort of like if Sony took their Xperia 1, the really like the cinematic smartphone, and then just like folded it in half. That's basically what you get here. And then much like the Galaxy Fold, you know, you've got like these chunky little bezels all around that's designed to sort of keep your screen safe, to block sort of dust from going in, from people, from peeling the top layer off. And it's also like a nice little lip so that when the phone closes, it doesn't smoosh the screen. Keeping the lights on, keeping that screen on is a 3300 milliamp hour battery, which is not a big, massive battery. It's quite small by today's standards actually, but I mean it still has support for wireless charging. The wireless charging module is in the bottom half of the smartphone, so if you put it down like the top half, the top shell down, it doesn't work. And it also has fast wired charging via a USB-C port. For cameras though, you're getting like a significantly sort of like maybe yesteryear Samsung setup. You've got a dual 12 megapixel camera setup at the front. So one is a 12 megapixel wide angle camera and one is a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. And then up front in the punch hole display, which I believe makes it the first punch hole display smartphone for a folding style of smartphone. And it's a 10 megapixel selfie camera that actually, you know, it takes pretty nice photos. And then obviously this Galaxy Z Flip that we have here, which is by the way a really big fingerprint magnet, is in this colorway called mirror black. So it's, for my money, it's like the most boring color, but there are two more colors that are more interesting. It is the mirror purple and then the mirror gold, but we got the mirror black. So there's that. In the light though, it does have this sort of like blue, almost navy kind of hue, which is quite nice, but there isn't like some kind of rainbow or like bubble or fancy sort of effect on the glass. It's very much sort of like a piano shiny surface finish, which is why it's so much of a fingerprint magnet. But it looks classy, so there's that. There's also a Samsung logo that's in the hinge, very similar to the Galaxy Fold. And when you open it up, then there's like, well, there's no more branding, right? And then one more thing that you might notice is that there is one display on the top shell of the smartphone that's supposed to be there to help you look at notifications and stuff. It is this small little 1.1 inch display. It's really tiny and it's really only, it has very limited function. So it's mostly to see your time, to see your notifications if you swipe across it, and then it can also function as like a temporary viewfinder for your camera. Excuse me. And since we're on the topic of cameras, I mean, this smartphone actually has quite a lot of the new Galaxy S20's camera features, including like its own night mode and also the single take mode, which was recently pushed to this smartphone through an OTA update. But it obviously doesn't have super zoom or any kind of zooming that is like optical because, well, it doesn't have a dedicated zoom camera. But I mean, it can do cool stuff like a night hyperlapse, which is a hyperlapse for low light. It's supposed to let you create really cool images with car trail lights and stuff like that, which I guess is useful if you want to do that. And then there's also, you know, every other kind of camera mode that you've come to expect from like a flagship Samsung device. Camera performance itself, it feels a lot like sort of an older Samsung flagship smartphone where the camera is still pretty good. It's not bad by any sense. It's like, you know, it holds its own, but I don't think it's quite as capable as the S20 or even like the newer iPhones. But you should still be getting like some pretty nice photos with this, both on the front and the rear camera. But now that we're done with the whole spec sheet discussion, it's time to talk about this smartphone from like a concept standpoint, right? Now, obviously, when you see this kind of clamshell design, this kind of form factor, the first thing that you'll think of is probably the Motorola Razr, which is really the first sort of throwback modern folding smartphone that we saw with this kind of design. And it turned a lot of heads because, I mean, first of all, it's like the nostalgia factor because it's the Razr reborn, wow! And then the other thing is that we haven't really seen like a clamshell folding phone design outside of like, you know, patterns and like renders and stuff like that. So it was really cool. Plus, when I had a chance to play with it at the Lenovo booth in CES, I thought that it had definitely the best sort of hinge mechanism that I've ever felt out there. It was really robust. It had this springiness to it that made it really nice to sort of like flip open with the smartphone. But obviously that design had quite a few flaws. So that screen, for example, right, on the Motorola Razr, that was like a really sort of bubbly affair. In fact, they even released like a video that says bumps and lumps on the display were normal, which, you know, wasn't very confidence inspiring. And when you open the phone up, you could see that from the hinge, I could actually see under the display, which was always a bit worrying considering like the whole problem with dust and stuff getting stuck under there. So it wasn't like a very reassuring kind of screen. And then if you poked around at it, it really flexed. It really flexed. On the Galaxy Z Flip though, it is a slightly different affair. So the display up front now, Samsung says, uses their proprietary ultra thin glass, which is supposed to be glass. But here's the thing, after a few teardowns and like, you know, stress tests, we found out, or the whole internet found out, that while there was like a layer of glass underneath, on top of it, Samsung also adds like almost like a built-in screen protector. So the top layer is still plastic, so if you do press too hard with your nails, it will damage the smartphone. So I don't know, like, doesn't that really like defeat the purpose of having glass on your smartphone? Well, that's what I thought at first, but using this Z Flip, you know, I think I can feel the benefits of that. I don't know if it's truly based on that, or if it's like the structure, but if you poke at this screen, it feels a lot more robust. It feels a lot more sturdy. It doesn't sort of move about or flex the way the Moto Razr does, which is really nice, I have to say. But still, you know, it's not quite as reassuring as like poking like a normal smartphone screen, because that one you can like, and it's fine, it's not gonna like crack or break. But this one, because of the top soft layer and the fact that, you know, it folds and flexes, I wouldn't do that, or at least I don't have the confidence to do that with this smartphone. But obviously the same problems apply, where you still cannot put like your own tempered glass screen protector. That one, I mean, that one you should know by now if you're planning to buy this type of smartphone. Next, we have the hinge mechanism. So while the Moto Razr had a very sort of special kind of hinge that almost like tucked the display into the corner of the smartphone, which I mean it worked really well. It was a really smooth sort of display, and it really helped with the one hand opening, flip opening thing, where if you folded the phone, unfolded the phone past like a 90-degree point, the phone would just snap into place, and that's like, you know, you've got that like, it's like really nice. This one though, if you want to do the one-handed thing, you really need to flip it before it comes out. You can do it, but it's quite like an endeavor. And if your hands are slippery, it might just fly off your smartphone. So that grip is definitely there. But I have to say that this hinge surprised me. I really liked it. It's a lot closer to the Galaxy Fold's hinge in terms of design, but there are distinct differences. So for example, on the Galaxy Fold, you have this really tight area where the magnets lock you in, and then when you let go, it sort of like flops, right? It's a floppy screen. This one doesn't flop. This one is, you open and then it's like, oh. And it's actually by design. It's not like it's some shitty mechanism that makes it worse. It's actually by design, and I quite like it because with this new hinge, you have access to the Z Flip's sort of almost like signature feature, where you can like put it down and then you open it halfway, and then you can like, oh, I guess it doesn't make that much sense, but think about this. If you want to take a selfie and you don't have like a friend to hold it for you to be your tripod, or you don't have like a tripod, or you don't have anywhere to put it on, you don't have like a phone stand to hold it on, this one you can just sort of like half fold it. The fingerprint scanner is really annoying, because this is, oh yeah, side mounted fingerprint scanner, by the way, not my favorite. But anyway, you can sort of half fold it, and then if you do that, you can see it sort of folds like that. And if you use your hand gesture, it will take a photo. Ching, there you go. So it's almost like your own sort of tripod, and you can adjust it because of how stiff and sturdy the hinge is. You can sort of move it in almost any direction. Of course, past a certain point, the weight of the phone will just pull it over. But this was actually the most surprising thing for me, because I was surprised at how useful it was. Once I figured out how to do it, I literally could not stop doing it. So yeah, this is actually pretty useful, and I quite like the fact that you can do this with the smartphone, which is not something you can do with any other folding phone. Obviously, if you don't want to use the 10 megapixel selfie camera, which by the way takes pretty nice photos for selfies, you can use the rear camera to take your own photo. All you need to do is, in the camera app, you tap on this little sort of corner button thing that says off and on, and then it turns on the front tiny display. So this tiny display, in the camera mode, you can't really interact with it, like you can't touch at it or anything, even though it is a touch sensitive display. You can swipe around with it to look at notifications, but in the camera, you can't really do any of that. So all you can do is sort of like use it to agar your framing, because it only pulls out the middle bit of the camera, even though it's like a portrait photo, so that you don't see your headroom or your bottom headroom. And then, but it still responds to like the palm gesture, so you can still use it to sort of frame your photos and take a photo, which I mean is neat, but with how good the front selfie camera is for taking selfies, like I don't ever see myself needing to use this to sort of take photos of yourself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, but speaking of the Hinge, right, before I forget, Samsung also, even though it looks a lot like the Galaxy Fold, Samsung has actually innovated on top of it. So while dust and stuff was like one of the most common themes, the things that would get stuck in the Hinge and get damaged, the original Fold, this one actually has like a layer of micro bristles that are like a brush. They almost act like a brush. So if any dust does get in, when you open it, theoretically, it should just like brush out all the dust or keep it from going in. At least that's what they say on promo images. I haven't poured sand on this yet, so I can't really tell you if that's exactly what it does, but you know, it's good to know. There is obviously no IP resistance of any kind, so you won't want to take this swimming with you. Besides that though, I mean, everything else is pretty much like a regular flagship smartphone. Of course, the question would be like, which form factor would be better? Is it the clamshell sort of flipping design, or is it more like the folding smartphone tablet design, where is this a folding phone or is this a folding tablet? You know, that kind of question. The argument for this is that you can have like a normal smartphone and then you can open it to do more, which is cool, but at the same time it's a big chunky boy. And this one, the other argument is that you can use it like any other normal smartphone, but then when you want to store it away, you just, and then you have like a really small thing. Like, I haven't had a phone that could fit in my pocket without sticking out of it a little bit, at least for a very long time. So this was a very refreshing thing, and I have to say I really like this form factor. It's slim when it's unfolded, so it's really easy to hold. It's a lot like the Xperia 1, like I said, but then you have the option to fold it in half so that it's a lot more pocketable and a lot more portable. Right now, as far as in-folding displays or in-folding smartphones are concerned, this is definitely my preferred folding mechanism or folding method. Like, I really love the clamshell. I've always been a sucker for flip phones. The moment I could have any money to buy a phone, I would buy a flip phone, and this just brings back so many memories, and I really like this. But now it's time to talk about the price. Yes, the price of folding smartphones is always something interesting to be discussed. Now, the original Galaxy Fold, that was 8,388 ringgit, I believe. It's a lot of money, it's almost 10,000 ringgit. But this smartphone is a lot more affordable. I say a lot more affordable, but it's actually 5,888 ringgit, which is still a lot of money. So if you're considering buying this smartphone, especially a smartphone that's a folding device, like, as far as we're concerned, it's like first or second gen product, which is always something that you should be cautious of when you buy a phone. But the nice thing about this device though is that for the most part it is a flagship smartphone, but it's not like overly expensive. Like, think about it. This has 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, right? And it's 5,888. If you want to buy an iPhone with iPhone 11 Pro Max with 256 gigs of storage, that device is 5,999 ringgit. So this is actually cheaper than an iPhone 11 Pro Max. Obviously, as an all-around flagship, the iPhone 11 Pro Max is still, I would say, a better phone because you've got like a more capable camera system, you've got stereo speakers. This one doesn't have stereo speakers. You've got water resistance, you know, you've got all that jazz, and this one is like pretty basic in terms of flagship features. You've got the processor, the screen, and the performance, but then the rest of it had to be sacrificed because it folds. So does this then make this smartphone worth the money? I don't really think you can say that any folding smartphone at this point is worth the money, but it is really cool, and if you really wanted a flip phone, it is now more affordable than it ever has been, which is great news. Plus, if you compare this to the Moto Razr, which is like that's like a mid-range smartphone that costs about the same price, this suddenly seems like more value for money, right? But that's it. Those are my thoughts about the Galaxy Z Flip. I almost called it the Galaxy Fold again. The Galaxy Z Flip. But I also asked on our Facebook group, RKMD, which, by the way, they got first dibs at looking at the smartphone. So if you want to see this cool tech, like before we make a video of this, you should totally join RKMD. And I asked them, like, what kind of things do you want to know about this smartphone? And I have a list of questions. So first of all, Mr. Joshua Wong asks, does it blend? Mark Yo asks, is the screen fragile? Because I love to wipe my phone phone screen using a microfiber cloth. It is kind of fragile because, like I said, it's a plastic layer on top, but the glass underneath definitely gives it like a robust feeling. So it's not quite as fragile as the Moto Razr, but again, that's not like setting the bar very high. So be gentle when you clean it and you should be good. Alex asks, not our Alex, what the benefit of the flips, or is it just aesthetics? Well, it is very aesthetically pleasing, and very satisfying to flip, and also like, ying ah, mate. But the thing is that it is functional, so you can sort of set it up like this, like I said, to take a selfie. You can put it up like that if you want to make a cool little tent for like your hamster or something. There's function there, but is it super functional? Not really lah. Joshua Low asks, how does the screen feel like? Like I said, more robust than I expected it to be. Definitely doesn't flex as much as like the Moto Razr, but it's still kind of lembek in the middle, especially near the hinge. And he also asked, like, when using the smaller outer display as a camera viewfinder, what interactions are possible other than tapping it twice to zoom in and out? Actually, I couldn't even get it to zoom in and out when you tap twice, which is weird, but you can swipe and tap at it when it's in notifications mode. In the camera mode, it really doesn't do that much. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts about the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip for now. Keep in mind that I've only had like a few hours with this smartphone, so if you have any questions or anything you want me to test with this smartphone, we don't have that much time with it, but if I get the chance to, I will try and test them and answer them. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. But if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell icon so that you're notified whenever we post a new video. You can also like us on Facebook to keep up to date there. But our home will always be at searchandchow.com. In the meantime, guys, please keep safe, keep yourself clean, and we will weather this storm together. Until the next time that I see you, I'm Rory. Bye.